Nope, no vintage results for my opponent's name, so I'm still in the dark on what they could be playing. I think on the draw I'll choose to mulligan this. If I at least had Sphere of Resistance turn 2 on the play, I would be tempted. If there was any way to accelerate into Twin Sphere, I would be tempted, but like these are too low powered of creatures to put my opponent under any type of pressure, and turn 2 on the draw is too late for a Sphere of Resistance to really do much. Then they already have all their Moxen ran out. They could have used the mana that they enabled themselves for at least a turn. So like Paradoxical Outcome is castable. They will have a Jace, Rinse Prodigy, or Young Pyromancer on the board. Well, I guess against Dredge, then this is a reasonable piece of disruption, but then I'm also mana screwing myself by wastelanding their Bazaar of Baghdad. And even then the Mirror of the Hand wasn't particularly good, because then you don't want all the spheres. So basically it was only good against Dredge, and only because a single wasteland could sometimes be a reasonable disruption in game 1. And even then I'm still pretty hopelessly lost, with no follow-up to pressure them while they... Okay, this hand looks a lot more reasonable. Still would prefer to have a Mox or something to go with this, so that I have 4 mana available on turn 1 instead of 3, because the advantage of 3 doesn't really offer me that much if I'm still only able to cast a single spell. But let's bottom that, I need more threats. But yeah, turn 1 I get to cast 1 spell, and then turn 2 I get to explode onto the board. That's very interesting. So they mulliganed and then didn't do anything. And they seem to be going through their turn pretty slowly, so it didn't look like an F6 where they like accidentally F6 and missed their turn. So most likely it's just like a 1-lander, a 0-lander sketchy hand or something. So either the hand is very powerful for a combo deck, or they're like Dredge. I think I'll still Overseer and put pressure on them while their hand is sketchy, and then go Overseer into Sphere, and if they counter the first Sphere I get to resolve a second one. So even though I can't run both out in the same turn, I'm protected against Force of Will. Library. Well, that's a pretty strange land to follow up on. Guess I can lead on Thorn. Because it doesn't actually make my Steel Overseer any more expensive, though they could still Force of Will my Steel Overseer instead of my Thorn if they want to do that. Still feels like it's alright, then I can start growing the Mithras Factories on the following turn. Also makes it more difficult for them to cast any of their cantrips. Like now a Ponder or Preordain or an Ancestral. I guess Ancestral is like one of the reasons you would keep a 0-lander, so that you think you can scry into a blue card, and then your hand is going from mana screwed into amazing very quickly. And they missed on their blue source, so it didn't pan out like that. But yeah, now if they were to cast even Ancestral Recall off of a blue land and this, then I would get to resolve Sphere of Resistance while they're tapped out, and they can't Force of Will me because of the Thorn. Yeah, they kind of want to hold on to their strip mine. This looks a lot like Mentor of some sort, because Library of, or maybe Land Still. Library of Alexandria and Strip Mine rarely go together in the same deck, and I think Land Still and Mentor are the only 2 decks where those 2 combine. Okay, we win. Though against both my sideboard plan is pretty similar, which is usually just send back your main deck configuration and don't board anything. Against Mentor Young Pyromancer I would want to have the 1 Dismember in my deck, maybe even 1 Sky Sovereign, because they also have quite a few Planeswalkers. And against Landstill I could consider cutting some number of Revokers and just having some of these in my deck, just because it gives me a little bit more threat density and a little bit more protection against board wipes. Like if they try to Supreme Verdict and Balance and all of that stuff me out, then I want standalone threats that put more pressure on them. But I think with no information, I'm fine running back my main deck configuration, because it won't be too bad against either of those matchups. And they could still be like a Sultai deck or something, like Deathrite Shaman based Team Leovold or something is what they are called, I think. With like Green Sun Zenith and Trigon Predator and Ramunap Excavator and all that random stuff. Though those are much more rarely running Library of Alexandria. I think it's pretty unlikely for that to be the case, but it's not impossible. Okay, so pretty fast hand, but also incredibly flooded already. We get to Sphere on turn 1, then have a creature. I think I'll keep, but if I don't draw a second creature pretty quickly, I could just be dead on the spot. They could like Lightning Bolt or Ancient Grudge or Swords to Plowshares or whatever my Revoker, and then I'm just sitting there doing nothing, and they build up a land count to work around the Sphere of Resistance. Could be a problem. But I think I can't really pass up on 8 mana on turn 1. That just has so much potential. If I find any creature to cast on turn 1, they just get super run over, and my Sphere plus 2 creatures is a great opening. And even if I find it by turn 2 or turn 3, at least I can take full advantage of one of the X creatures, like Ballista and Hangerback. Okay, so lead on Black Lotus, because once again I'm pretty happy about them countering it. No counter. Can't really play around Mindbreak Trap with this hand, but most people should have just boarded it out by now. Would be super fringe. Their sideboard plan would have to be awful for it to still be in their deck, I think. Maybe I should have sequenced these differently. Yeah, I think I should have led on Revoker. Then if they float white mana off of their Pearl, I just go to post-combat main phase, so that they can't Swords to Plowshare my Ravager. Then I would have to end up Swords to Plowsharing my Revoker. Okay. Yeah, kind of the same thing here, but then like sure, Revoker gets... Maybe that's even worse for me if the Revoker gets blown up by Ancient Grudge. Okay, so Mox Pearl. I do have one of my own, but yeah, still seems more favorable to do that than to randomly name like Deck Faden in the dark, especially because I'm following up with Sphere. Goodbye Black Lotus. Not the best Black Lotus ever seen, but I think I do need to put as much disruption onto the board as possible. Maybe they don't immediately have green mana available to them to blow up my Revoker or my Sphere. Now it's more likely for it to be Oath, actually. Though I don't expect Oath to be running Strip Mine, so no, probably still some kind of Young Pyromancer deck. Just a very greedy build of Young Pyromancer with many colors. Because this is already... Well... I guess it might be like Temur Young Pyromancer. And they don't actually have access to white mana. Like, I mean, they do have a Mox, but they're not using white mana. So it's like Young Pyromancer, no Mentor. Kinda strange. Not certain what's going on. Okay, so they did not find green mana so far. But yeah, Wasteland and Strip Mine, so it has to be some kind of tempo deck, like, I guess Blue-Red Delver. But Blue-Red Delver also very infrequently runs Library and off-color Moxen. I think Blue-Red Devil is usually limited to just blue and red Mox. And maybe like a Soul Ring, even that doesn't really do much for the deck because the curve is so low. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what opponent's doing. Maybe we find out, or maybe they just die before I find out. The Scalding Tarn offers limit green stars though, so that buys opponent quite a bit more time. Seems interesting that they held on to the Wasteland though. I had Mishra's Workshop on the board, and it would have, like, they didn't know about the Ancient Tomb yet, so it would have limited me to only 2 mana with the Sphere, so that makes it a lot more difficult for me to cast any kind of follow-up aggression. So wastelanding my Workshop seemed like a pretty easy decision, so they have to have some expensive cards in hand is basically the conclusion. Like if they have 3 drops or 4 drops or something. Like if they're trying to build up to Deck Faden by destroying either of these two so that the Mox Pearl gets unlocked, or I even only had 1 mana with my own Mox Pearl being shut down. If they wasteland this, I'm at only Mox Ruby. So yeah, they have to have some expensive cards in their hand, or they made a pretty big mistake not wastelanding this. So if you give my opponent any kind of credit, I assume their hand involves Deck Faden, though the Ravager already gives me some decent protection against Deck Faden. Or I guess Circles Recall. Yeah, maybe they just Circles me this turn instead of the Ancient Grudge, but I don't even feel like I'm that afraid of it. I guess Circles Recall and wastelanding this during their turn ends up being a little bit annoying, because I only have access to 4 mana to rebuild my board if they do it end of turn. We'll see. So this is either Ancient Grudge or Circles, pretty much assuredly. And then Ancient Grudge just set up Deck Faden being castable, but with Ravager on the board it's useless, so they would likely have to target Ravager. And then they're still a mana short. Interesting. Yeah, this looks like Grudge. Wait, no, it does not look like Grudge. Wait, no, it does. Huh, no, they're 3 mana. Slice and Dice. Slice and Dice would be pretty bad for me. I don't know, I'll just wait and see. Their decisions so far seem pretty strange from my side of the board, but obviously I don't have the full picture of their hand. Wear Tear. So they do have white mana. So they're just 4-color Mentor or something. Mentor with a green splash. Usually don't like those types of decks, because I think the mana in the 3-color deck is already sketchy enough, and the 4th color doesn't really add that much. Definitely want to grow the creature that is tapped, so that if they Deck Faden my untapped creature, I still have an attacker that can attack into the Steel Overseer without dying. And if they steal my tapped creature, then I can attack the 1 loyalty Deck Faden with my Steel Overseer to get it off of the board, because the creature that they then steal is going to be tapped and unable to block. So in both cases I end up behind, but not completely wrecked. Flashback Grudge, sure. Now they can use their Mox again. That's disgusting. Well, now I might end up being completely wrecked. I guess Walking Ballista is still a pretty great top deck for me. If they like Deck Faden, I can potentially shoot down both the Deck Faden and the Overseer to keep the board clear. But yeah, the way they sequenced all of this looked a lot like they were setting up deck Faden, so yeah, I expected this to be their play. But yeah, Time Walk made my situation a lot worse. Because otherwise I had a board position that was perfectly prepared for him, and now I don't. And yeah, Ballista I can only X equals 1 it even, so even if I had drawn that, my position was not that great. I just hate losing to this deck because I feel like it's nonsense to have green in it. I mean, Grudge is a useful card, but you're so mana screwed so much of the time with 4 colors. Like, supporting red, green, and white is a pretty big stretch. Though if they're discarding Ancient Grudge to their deck Faden, then I'm just pretty crushed, because that means their worst card in hand is Ancient Grudge. Not sure how I'm supposed to win from there. I could have just Ancient Grudged my Sol Ring, then Ancient Grudged my Mox or something to... Oh my god. Yeah, I think I want to not cast this, because it still gives me another... Well, no, Revoker doesn't even do anything. It just gives me another draw step for Ballista. Either they steal one of my mana artifacts that I don't really care about, or they plus the deck again, and then potentially I can Ballista it down. Also, I can keep looking at how they sideboard it, what other artifact destruction they have access to. But yeah, it feels like I'm pretty much crushed. Unfortunate. Yeah, Ancient Grudge into Wear Tear into deck Faden is a pretty good curve. And that's the problem with like sideboarding against these decks also. Lightning Bolt, Brainstorm, sure. Snapcaster. Yeah, whatever, you got me. Snapcaster, Time Walk. The problem is that like there's many ways to go over the top of removal. You can cast like Wormcoil Entrance or something, and those make Ancient Grudge and Wear Tear and all of that pretty embarrassing, but then all of those cards are weak to deck Faden, and whenever they get stolen you can't beat them on the opposing side of the board. So like you have a Wormcoil Engine, your opponent plays deck Faden, and then you go from a dominating board to a losing board right away. So I don't like that pressure on sideboard cards. You kind of are forced into winning with your main deck cards. Okay, I'll board this and cut like a Metamorph or something, because Metamorph is more difficult to pull off when you're facing that much removal, and this can potentially pick off a deck Faden or a Jason's Prodigy or something, and also just be another threat. And even if it does get stolen by deck Faden, my opponent won't necessarily have the tools to crew it, so it's a good haymaker, but it's not necessarily a blowout whenever it gets stolen. Unless my opponent already has Young Pyromancer or Mentor active, they rarely have 3 power. Okay, and that seems like a decent start, though it is vulnerable to either my Sol Ring or my Inspector getting countered or destroyed. But yeah, Hangerback Walker is like my most removal resilient threat. And if I get to untap with this Inspector, I have a pretty explosive opening. And their answers seem to cost 2 a lot of the time, which is also a problem, I think. Like, sure, Ancient Grudge is a great card advantage engine, but it does cost 2 on the front side, and then if you're being taxed by sphere effects, it becomes pretty slow. Not sure. Though Lightning Bolt still does it here for my opponent. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Get to complain about their removal being inefficient, and they draw the 1 card in their deck that is not inefficient. Well, not the 1 card, but the 1 removal spell. They have a ton of very efficient blue cards, of course. Okay, let's try to Revoker the Mox. That seems slightly better than Sphere right now. I mean, alternatively, I could try to Revoker Deck Faden again. But yeah, this puts the most pressure onto the board for now and disrupts them the most for now. And they will end up killing the Revoker at some point anyways. Okay, so Young Pyro. That is pretty weak to my Ballista. Wow. I think I just want to go for the high risk line of making Ballista X equals 2, and then I'm super screwed against Forceful. What? Cancel. Yeah, I think I'm going to risk that. Because then I have a Ballista sticking around on the board. And that goes really well with my Steel Overseer. Don't force it, maybe. Okay, very nice. Now Sphere against Steel Overseer is actually pretty interesting. Overseer just allows me to run them over. Yeah, that has to be better. Even Deck Faden doesn't really do much for them in the face of Ballista, and like Overseer has to be stolen, but then Ballista can turn that into a favorable position to me. And yeah, this is the most pressure. If they are still relying on like Ancient Grudges and Wear Tears, then 4 creatures on the board is a pretty bad position to be in, because they can only answer 1 or 2 of them at the same time. If there's Fire Spout or something, Subterranean Tremors, I might just get destroyed, but I haven't seen any of those and they seem difficult to fit into my opponent's strategy. Yeah, I mean that's an okay road bump, but it doesn't really solve the situation as I said. I mean, it's a 2-for-1. They're once again answering 2 of my creatures unless I find a mana. Well, no, I already had 4 mana available. But yeah, finding a mana source is pretty useful. Because now I can just put counters onto Ballista and keep it on the board. Deal with the Steel Overseer, deal with the Deck Faden. Without losing another creature. Yeah, my draw has been pretty amazing. And I'm glad that at least my prediction of their removal being clunky has kind of been holding true. They did have the most efficient one in Lightning Bolt, but then after that, like, they spent their whole turn doing 1 point of interaction with me, like 1 blocker, steal 1 thing, and whenever I'm capable of doing multiple things in a turn, they just get run over. Yeah, nice. Nice, nice. 3-1